Hey guys, what's happening? This is Mr. Charles. So recently we have been studying GASSTOP, which is a technique for literary analysis in the class. And so we're going to be working with a specific poem. It's Langston Hughes' Mother to Son. And this is a demonstration of how you would apply GASSTOP to a particular poem. And it's a great poem, you'll like it. So our goal, our objective, is that we're going to analyze this poem. We're going to read it several times, and we're going to identify each element of GASSTOP. So remember that that's an acronym. That means that each one of those letters stands for a particular word. If you didn't catch that, here's a link to the presentation that goes over GASSTOP. And the reason we're doing this is to increase our accuracy when we're talking about texts. So basically you know what you're talking about and can prove it. It's also going to make your writing a lot more interesting and better. And finally, it'll help you to understand the things that you read, which arguably is one of the best things about school. So the acronym one more time: genre, audience, speaker, subject, tone, other, and purpose. And I just want to reiterate, go over again, that it's important that you go in that order, because purpose is the last thing. In a poem we call that the theme, and before we even make a guess at the theme, we have to read the poem multiple times and understand all those other parts, okay? So I'd say read it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Read it once for each one of those things, especially if it's a short piece. It doesn't take that long. So here's the actual poem, Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. But we're going to go back and we're going to watch the YouTube video version here.
Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tanks in it, splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time I've been a climbing up and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you finds it kinder hard. Don't you fall now. I'm still going, honey. I'm still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
So obviously it's tempting to want to speculate on the meaning of the poem right away as soon as we see it or hear it or read it. But in this case, I'm encouraging you to go through several times and look for the genre, look for the audience, look for the speaker, look for the subject and the tone and other literary elements, and then return to ask yourself, what's the purpose, or in this case, what's the theme? What is this poem trying to teach us about life? Alright, so we've gotten through our poem. I'm now going to demonstrate each of those on this particular poem. Now I'm not going to read it in between every time because that would just take too much time in the video, but I would encourage you to do that, okay? So genre, what type of thing am I looking at? We're going to say that it's a poem. That's an okay answer. It's not a great answer. Here's a great answer. Since it has no rhyme scheme or it doesn't follow any rules like a haiku or a ballad or a Petrarchan sonnet or something like that, we know doesn't follow those rules, it must be free verse, okay? It's poetry, not prose, so it doesn't really fall into like the fiction or nonfiction categories. Prose, things with paragraphs, falls into fiction or nonfiction, but in this case it's poetry. Just looking at the structure, if you look at it on a page, you can see that it's sort of short. There are only 20 lines. Some of the lines are only one word, like the line that just says bear. So kind of interesting. Line 1 is unique because it introduces the advice. Well, son, I'll tell you. And lines 2 through 20 are different. There's a colon after line 1, and lines 2 through 20 then begin and sort of tell the story of the staircase, which is neat. Now let's look at the audience. So who's receiving this information? In this case, a son is an okay answer. Not a great answer. It comes from the title, I get it. But a great answer is a son who might be having a tough time. You can always increase the power of your answers for speaker and audience if they have somebody who in there. So if you know it's a son, you can say a son who, and then describe a little bit based on what you know. Not what you're guessing, but what you know about the son. In this case, lines 15 through 17 indicate that the son might be thinking about giving up, or setting down, or quitting, or falling even. The speaker, likewise, we can say the speaker is a mother. That's okay, it's right, technically, but it's not great. That information comes from the title, of course. What we can say is this is a mother who's had a difficult life. This woman's a survivor. We know that from lines 18 through 20 because she says, life for me ain't been no crystal stair, and she talks about the difficulties of her staircase. Also, I want to point out that Langston Hughes, the actual author, is not a mother, and this is a great example of how you as a writer can write from the perspective of any speaker. You could write a poem from the perspective of a turtle, or a crab, or a seashell, or a star. It doesn't even have to be a human being. So here Hughes is writing from the perspective of a mom, even though he himself was never a mom. So don't say the author. If you say the speaker is Langston Hughes, that is wrong. All right, subject. So generally, what's this about? If somebody asked you, you'd probably say it's about the stairway of life and the hardships that we encounter. If you're passing them real quickly and just real briefly here on campus or somewhere else, they might ask you, hey, what's that about? And you say, it's about a blank that represents blank. Fill in the blanks. Tone, the speaker's attitude. This is tough, and so usually what I like to do is consult a tone word list. So I'll tell you that you can just click here or type into Google tone word list. This is the first hit. It comes from Valencia College, and I like that it separates it by like positive tone words and then negative tone words. We've got humor words because not all jokes are the same. Some of them are kind of mean joking, like malicious. Others are kind of questioning, like quizzical. Others are just silly. But those are all different words for something that's funny in a different kind of way. So neutral words that are kind of in the middle. So yeah, I really love this tone word list, and I looked up here and found encouraging and thought that was the best match. So I would use tools like that often. So I use the tone word list to find the word encouraging, and notice that tone often does change, especially within poetry. So identify any important shifts in tone. We call that a tone shift, a tone change. Okay, so other literary devices and techniques. This is your chance to kind of highlight what you think is the most important special effect that the writer is using. In this case, certainly the most important effect is this metaphor, life is a staircase. Lines 2 through 20 are about that staircase. Lines 2 through 20 are an extended metaphor. It's not just one little metaphor in a couple lines. It rules the entire poem, except for line 1 where they introduce it. So you could also say that other important stuff is dialect, or the relationship between the mother and the son, or syntax, like the way that the sentences are structured. That one bear is just one word sentence. I think that's kind of interesting. But certainly the most important device that the author is using is an extended metaphor, lines 2 through 20. All right, purpose. Again, in poetry, we actually call this a theme. So why did the author write this? Langston Hughes could have spent that half hour or 45 minutes or 3 weeks that he spent writing this. He could have spent that sitting on the couch. He could have spent that reading books from other authors, but instead he chose to write this for you. Why? What's he trying to do? How's he trying to change the world? I would say that Hughes is persuading the reader to be encouraged and to take heart when life isn't easy, and there's probably somebody out there in the world who's had it worse than you have. And if he can communicate that message to people and give them a little bit of hope to keep on fighting, keep on surviving, that's a good thing to do. Okay, so we've done an example here on Langston Hughes's poem, Mother to Son. But why is that important? Why does this matter at all? Is this just an English class or what? How will this particular poem or these skills really impact the journey of my life when I leave here and go home? The answer to that for me is in this example. I love summer. I have a family, 2 kids, and we love to do fun stuff. I love to go to Disneyland with my two girls because we didn't get a chance to go when I was young, so I love to take them there. I'm more excited about it than they are. So here's my wife and my two kids at Disneyland at the Cinderella Castle, right? So cool that we get to do that. But I'm sad, guys. I'm sad because summer has come to an end. Oh, poor me. Poor Mr. Charles. Meanwhile, I think about my dad. My dad, when he was a kid, his summers weren't as fun as mine. He got to do this during the summer. This is picking cotton in the state of Texas, where he was born. They moved to California. He had like 7 brothers and sisters, and every summer they would have to go back to Texas to pick cotton. Seriously, that's not a joke. I texted my dad so that he would confirm this. Dad, is it true that you and your brothers and sisters would go to Texas to pick cotton during the summer? Not my fondest memories, but yes, that is true. He didn't even get to keep the money that they made. Sad story. So, when I think about my dad, my summers aren't that bad. And the fact that summer's ending, to me, it's like, oh, I can't go to Disneyland. But then I think about my dad picking cotton in the summer heat, forget about it. I have a way better summer than he does, and I don't really have any reason to complain. So I should change my perspective and be more thankful for the gifts and opportunities that I have. I'll make it. I'll survive, right? If he can survive, I can survive. Just like if the mother can survive her walk up that staircase, so can the son. So here's a sample reflection paragraph to kind of tie it all up. If you were to write some kind of thing for school saying that you understood this poem, this is what it's about, it might look something like this. This is my example. In Langston Hughes' free verse poem, Mother to Son, a mother who continues to suffer through a life filled with different kinds of challenges encourages her son to continue climbing the staircase of life. Hughes uses extended metaphor, lines 2 through 20, to communicate the theme. The speaker's difficulties and decision to keep going compel her son not to quit. Personally, when I remember my dad's struggles, mine seem small. Now, I could get into an entire essay, this could be the intro paragraph to an entire essay, where I extract out the meaning from the poem and compare it to my life with my perspective and my father and everything. And that would probably be a pretty interesting essay, as long as I'm continuing to go back to the poem and cite it. As you can see, I've got lines 2 through 20 here. I'm referencing the title. I told my reader what it is that I'm talking about, what I'm reading in the first line, Langston Hughes' free verse poem, Mother to Son. And the big thing here, folks, the big thing that I want to emphasize is I'm right. I know that I'm right because I went through the GASSTOP analysis technique, so I'm not just guessing. I confirmed with multiple readings each one of those components to make sure that my analysis is correct, and therefore my comments on the poem are meaningful. So I'm not just, breathing smoke here or just pretending like I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about, not because I'm an English teacher. I know what I'm talking about because I went through and confirmed all of those elements of the GASSTOP analysis. Thanks. You are now going to do the same thing, but instead of analyzing this poem, which we've done together, you're going to analyze 2 interesting things that you brought from home. Then you're going to be in groups, and you're going to decide who brought the most interesting thing from home, and then everybody is going to analyze that. And if you already brought it, then you can just write "I win" on your paper. You don't have to analyze it a second time. So that's nice. Bring something really interesting. So the goal of this is, again, to increase our accuracy and make sure we know what we're talking about, because it's interesting when we read about stuff that people know what they're talking about. All right, here's my example from home. I picked up this coffee cup. That's my classroom in the background of that coffee cup. I picked up this coffee cup on my way to school on August 13th of 2015 at a Chick-fil-A. So I didn't expect to encounter this text on my way to school at Chick-fil-A, but it turns out that they put an excerpt about somebody's life on their coffee cups. That's called an excerpt because it's not the whole thing, it's just a piece of it, and it's a biography because it's about somebody, but this person didn't write it. In this case, we've got Franco Garbanzo here. He's a Thrive farmer who produces coffee for Chick-fil-A. The audience, coffee purchasers of Chick-fil-A's. The speaker, the Chick-fil-A Corporation. The subject, the life of Franco Garbanzo. The tone is encouraging. It's telling me about his family and their goals and what they like to do. So it says, Franco's dream, his children earning a sustainable living and contributing the family tradition of coffee farming is possible. So it's celebratory, right? It's encouraging. The other stuff, I think it's really interesting that they have a link down at the bottom, coffeewithastory.com. I also think it's interesting they put his picture. Why would they put the picture of some guy that I'm never going to meet in my life? And that leads me to the purpose. Chick-fil-A is brilliant because what they're doing is selling more cups of coffee. The way that they're doing it is by encouraging me that when I spend money on Chick-fil-A coffee, guys like Franco Garbanzo and his families can achieve their dreams. So I'm not just giving a gigantic corporation money, I'm helping individual people to achieve their dreams and take care of their children. That to me is motivating. Now I'm going to go back to Chick-fil-A and buy another cup of coffee instead of going to some other massive corporation and just throwing my money into their giant stack. So whoever developed this idea at Chick-fil-A, let's put messages on our coffee cups with specific coffee growers on there. Let's start a website that features them all. Probably got a raise and is making a lot of money. It's a really good idea. Anyway, that's my example. You bring 2 interesting texts to school and do the same, and then we'll find the one in your group that's the most interesting, and everybody will focus on that one. Thanks a lot.